Hello, everyone. We are moving into our next segment. I'm so excited today. We have an amazing guest expert. We're going to talk about gastrointestinal health, your gut, your GI tract, your microbiome, what's going on with that, food sensitivities, how we get your gut in top shape. What are the most important concepts, right? We hear about this so much, the importance of gastrointestinal health. And we're going to talk about what are the absolute most important concepts for you. So we welcome Kristina, Dr. Carmen. It's a pleasure. Thank you. Great to see you again.
Yeah, you too. Thanks for having me. What a pleasure.
Of course. Yes, this is lovely. We've been talking just prior to recording here and just catching up and excited to bring this topic to you all. Let me give you a formal introduction of Dr. Carmen and then we'll jump right into it. Kristina Carmen is a dedicated naturopathic doctor, nutritional therapist, and functional medicine practitioner with over 15 years of experience in empowering patients to reach their health goals through a holistic, whole person approach. Founder of Tiny Fish Co., Kristina combines modern nutritional science with traditional naturopathic practices to support gut health. Fantastic topic of today's conversation. But that's not all she does. Hormone balance, weight management, and immune wellness. Her integrative expertise spans across functional diagnostics, nutrigenomics, herbal medicine, and lifestyle management. As a sought-after advisor and educator for prominent organizations, Kristina applies the, quote, food as medicine, unquote, philosophy to deliver personalized care tailored to each person's unique needs. Love it. Love what you do.
I was just going to say, I'm like, that's a lot of words there. But yeah, no, food as medicine is a big passion piece for me. So
Yes.
It fires me up every day, even after all these years.
Fantastic. Well, you're in the right place. You're doing the right thing then if you have that feeling, right? When it's like
Absolutely.
Going to work is a joy and an enthusiasm still every day. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Well, I talk to patients all the time and we hear so much in mass media and, on social media and such about your gut health. There's more living organisms in your gut than in your body, and gut-brain connection and food allergies and food intolerance and all that. And I think people are rightly concerned to do right by their GI tract and get their gut, in the best health possible, but also perhaps a little slightly confused and slightly overwhelmed, even if I may say so, by, conflicting advice and just too much information, like I got some test and it shows I'm allergic to 25 foods and now I can't ever eat those, but it's the only thing my wife makes me for dinner. Where do I go? Right. So I want today to simplify and just kind of hit the people with maybe what are the three most important concepts for sort of a beginner to think about having a healthy GI system and why it matters. So I'm loving this conversation opportunity. And why don't we just open it up? What would you say is the first thing that we want the people to understand, Kristina?
Okay. So food, 100% is the first one we need to really look at and focus on when we're looking at our gut, and even beyond. So I think we forget sometimes with all the noise that's out there that the food that we're eating, whether it be supportive for us or not so supportive, literally signals all the cells in our bodies to turn on. It is the messenger for everything to function. So it has to start there, beyond anything else. So beyond all the advice on the supplements and all the other things that can be really incredibly helpful, that is the first point of sort of entry when it comes to supporting the gut health. This is where it gets really confusing for a lot of people. And I think maybe having that individualized support and understanding how your body works is also a really important piece in this. Again, because there's so much noise and there's so much information out there on what to do, what not to do. We still have to, take that information and apply it to our lives in a positive way that actually works for us. One thing that may be beneficial for someone might not be supportive for you at all. And we have to listen to our body's messages when it comes to that. So ultimately, I think when it comes down to our gut health, what our guts need, and obviously there's a lot of nuance here and variation around this, is simple food, real food that is done consistently or eaten consistently, which is the hardest thing in a Western world and a Western diet, that is really varied. So almost think of eating the rainbow. When we really narrow it down, what is our microbiome and all those beautiful bacteria love and what they flourish on is a variety. They love the diversity. So can you have that diverse diet as much as possible and as consistently as possible, but keeping it really simple. It doesn't need to be overcomplicated. Processed foods full of sugar, full of, all those nasties. Real food done consistently, but
Mm,
really varied.
mm. Okay.
So if
And
that's a simple answer to kind of obviously, I guess I'm not even dumb down, but simplify a very, very complicated area, that would be
sure.
kind of a key takeaway.
I can understand. I like what you mentioned as food as a messenger to your body. Isn't that interesting, right? Sometimes we pigeonhole food and we just think it's a fuel source, which it is. But how about as a messenger? Food signals messaging capabilities and brings inherent messages to your body about things like your energy level, your level
Everything.
of inflammation, right? Certain hormones get released or impaired based on certain food intakes. It's a
Yeah,
messenger.
absolutely. I mean, we have really, really keystone bacteria that actually are signaled, switched on and off based on the foods that we're eating and how our bodies break them down in order to actually enable energy from it. So they are really, really key messengers. And, you know, the gut actually, until very recently hasn't really been a heavily studied area.
Hmm.
Now, I'm much more it is, and I think it's very important, but it is the beginning. It's the epicenter. So yes, you need food for energy, for as a fuel source to function throughout the day. But what you're eating and what you're nourishing your body with matters so much because of this reason. You're
Mhm.
signaling all of these incredible bacteria to
Mhm.
then, shoot off and tell all the different other areas of our body what they should be doing and what not to be doing.
Yeah. Phenomenal. And I think when people go to the store, I've heard this adage of like shopping the perimeter of the
Yeah,
store,
yeah,
right? I think that's a good idea. In the
yeah,
middle of the store is like the candy,
yeah.
the chips, the
Don't go down the
crackers, the
aisles. That's
processed food. Like stay on the edge, get that egg, get that kale,
yeah,
get a piece of fresh lean meat, whatever the
yeah.
case may be, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely the
Right.
perimeter of the store. Although just be careful with that because supermarketers, and are very, very clever there. They'll pop all the, salad, the really saucy things in those aisles as well. With the next to all the fresh produce, there'll be,
Hmm.
all the salad dressings, which
Hmm.
not always so beneficial. So, just watch, we have to be very, very smart as the consumer and very savvy and understand that the way these stores are set up is really to encourage us to buy more.
Hmm.
Um, and it's awful to say this, but it is to trick us in many ways to think that
Hmm.
actually healthy food is, packaged a certain way. So we do have to have a little bit of understanding and ownership of
Hmm.
ourselves, but we do
Hmm.
have to take ownership of our own health as well. I think that's a really important piece here.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much
Yeah.
so.
Phenomenal. Let's go. What would you say is point number two? So point number one is the importance of food. It's a messenger, et cetera. What would you say is the next most important thing for people to understand?
Okay, so another tricky one, but sleep. So looking
Hmm.
at the consistency around that, and that is a very tricky one. And I know certainly from my own clinical practice, it is what people struggle with. It's also what they often brush under the rug. We hear this concept of like, oh, just sleep when I'm dead. I'm like, but that might happen before
Yeah.
we know it if we're not really prioritizing this. So yes, food is important, but also looking at how we're giving our body the time and the space in order to rest and to recover. So not just the sleep piece specifically, but also the rest. So preparing the body so that we can actually adequately sleep well and consistently. So we were talking about this earlier, but I read
Hmm.
something that I think on average Americans get, 5.5 hours of sleep, which is really pretty significant and not long enough, really,
Yeah.
given how much is coming down at us all the time. We live very stressful lives. We are inundated constantly with lots of different types of toxins and exposures. Our diets are not adequate or poor as well. And then on
Hmm.
top of that, you're adding in this an opportunity for you're not adding in the opportunity for the body to properly recover and repair. And that's what happens when we're sleeping. It's like a little brush comes in through our GI tracts when we're sleeping, and it does all this sort of cleaning and clearing for us. We get rid of glycogen stores. We burn adipose tissue.
Ah.
If you encourage some fasting as well into this whole picture, and that's something that is possible for you, then we're supporting this sort of autophagy where we're killing off old cells all of this happens while the body is resting. And it needs that. Our brains need it. We need to be able
Hmm.
to reset, to rebalance all of those levels that, went a bit
Hmm.
haywire throughout the day. So it's
Hmm.
really important. So the sleep and sleep hygiene, so however that looks for you, is fundamental. And it's not something that I think we should brush aside. I think we should really prioritize it.
Mm. Phenomenal. I have to give a big thumbs up, two thumbs up to that concept. It's one of the first things I start talking to patients about. It's like, hey, let's talk about your sleep. What's the quality of it? If your sleep's terrible, there's a cap on how much better I can get you feeling,
Yeah.
And when I think about sleep, a lot of times I try to explain to them, it's an oxidative stress to your body to get crummy sleep, or let's say an extreme example, to stay up all night, right? Or to have shift work. It drives oxidation, it drives inflammation. Not only that, it drives metabolic changes that aren't helpful, like insulin resistance, elevated blood sugar, um, greater hunger the next day, some things like that. But you're bringing out the point that sleep in particular is helpful for the GI tract, that there's a
Yeah.
cleansing and renewal process that goes on that wouldn't
There
happen.
is. There is a whole those trillions of bacteria, those live bacteria need the time in order to, it needs the rest period in order to really
Hmm.
support that terrain and to start the colonization of new bacteria. And actually, a lot of that happens whilst we're sleeping when there
Hmm.
isn't any food coming in. So obviously, the food piece is really important, but the rest piece is important as well. Because
Hmm.
that's when the clearing and the cleansing and the rehabilitation of those cells and of those bacteria happens. And this is it's a fundamental process in that whole beautiful cascade of
Yeah.
digestion.
Which seems to tie in a bit, I think, as you alluded to, as regards intermittent fasting, right? Because that's a period of, or fasting in general, that's a period of rest for the GI
Yeah,
tract,
yeah,
right? So if you want to talk about fasting for a minute and what that does healthy for the GI system, I think people would be quite interested. Are you a fan? Are you not? What do you
yeah,
suggest?
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I am a very, very big fan of fasting. However, I think the first thing that we need to look at is how nutrient dense your diet is to begin with. I think a lot of people will say, "Oh, well, I'll just start fasting because I want to lose weight," or whatever their, health goals are, or they've heard that it's a great thing to do, but their diet is already very deficient, or there's lots of peaks and troughs in their diet, or it's really inconsistent. But I think what you're nourishing your body with in your eating window is as important, if not more important, than the fasting piece as well. Because if we're already in a nutrient depleted state, and then we put in fasting, the body's not going to be able to function and do all of those incredible sort of mechanisms that it's meant to in order
Hmm.
for the cleaning, the clearing, the rehabilitation, the autophagy, the cellular turnover, the supporting that mitochondrial health, supporting the immune system, all of those things that are really, really and beneficial when it comes
Hmm.
to a fasting picture, because you're giving the body space to do what it needs to do in order to heal.
Hmm.
um, it won't be able to do that because it's already depleted as far as nutrients. And we can already assume that most of us living in a Western diet, Western cultures, will have some nutrient depletion for so many reasons. We're massively stressed, that will dehydrate and deplete nutrients from our body. Our soil quality isn't there as it used to be. So that's always, a piece to consider. That doesn't mean we shouldn't still be eating our, fresh produce and vegetables. We still should be including those in our diet. But we're already not including those in our diet, and they're really deficient
Hmm.
from that perspective. We're not eating great sources of protein. We're not getting that diversity. So nutrient perspective, we need the nutrition to be there as well as
Hmm.
the fasting. So the
Hmm.
two work really closely together, at least certainly from my
Hmm.
experience and what my understanding is. And a lot of the research suggests that as well. It's
Hmm.
not just the fast, it's what you're eating as well.
I see. Right. I can see the concept there. It's not enough to just say, let me not eat for a while, but I really need to start with reforming what I am eating, making sure the
Yeah,
nutrition's
because if you're
there.
just going to
Yeah.
Chick-fil-A or Burger King or whatever in your eating window and then you're fasting, I mean, it just does not make any sense to me whatsoever.
Good point. Yeah, good point. I can see that. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, good point. Well, I love it. So what do the people need to understand? Number one, food, it's a messenger, it's not just a fuel molecule. Number two, your GI tract benefits from rest, whether overnight at sleep or through fasting, although continue to make number one a priority if you do start fasting, right? But there's
Mhm.
a renewal process that goes on in the GI tract.
Exactly.
Phenomenal, kind of a regrowth and such. Okay, what about number three? What should people most take away to understand their GI health? What would you say is number three?
Okay, maybe the unfavorable one, but it's movement or
Hmm.
exercise, and whatever that looks like for you based on your physical capabilities. But starting somewhere that is sustainable, achievable, and can be consistent. So
Mm-hmm.
moving our bodies is as beneficial and as important, and should really be part of this sort of three-part sort of approach when it comes to our gut and health, but also for our overall health. So we know, and there's a lot of incredible research now coming out on the benefits of exercise, and about, even putting load on our muscles, just even from a glucose tolerance
Mm-hmm.
perspective. Then when we really want to dive into it, muscle tissue will burn more calories at rest. So again, that's where the important piece of the nutrition comes in. We need to make sure that obviously dietary sources, good sources of protein, and fiber and healthy fats, and all of these are coming into the diet in order to really support that muscle tissue and the turnover. But when we're looking at it, from a weight perspective, that's really significant, right?
Mm-hmm.
That will, you will burn all of those. And then obviously we see so much now of these people, a lot of people that are on sort of weight loss medications, wrongly or rightly, but they're thrown at this picture,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not supporting their bodies in this in these other ways. So the nutrition being very important, obviously the muscle tissue being very important,
Mm-hmm.
and movement. I guess we focus so much on the muscle tissue, but just movement in general will flow and help that digestive function. So,
Mm-hmm.
going for a walk after a meal, even 10-20 minutes, almost like someone's kind of chasing you a bit
Mm-hmm.
after a meal, can be really beneficial to help that cascade of the digestive function.
Mm-hmm.
So that you're really assimilating and utilizing the nutrients from the food and digesting it adequately. I
Mm-hmm.
do a lot of, you know this, I do a lot of stool testing in my practice, and we do see a lot of digestive residue in stool results.
Mm-hmm.
And increasingly, I'm seeing it more and more and more. And I think this plays a huge role in how our bodies are digesting our food that we're eating. So, regardless of what you're eating, and we should focus on that, obviously,
Yeah.
but the movement piece is really important. So, are you sitting down eating mindfully? Are you taking time to chew your food so that you can really support digestive function? Are
Mm-hmm.
you drinking and eating a lot? We see this a lot here, and actually that will affect digestion, and particularly in those people that tend to be a bit sensitive, because this is digestive fire. As soon as we start chewing, we're signaling lots of different hormones and digestive enzymes to sort of start their signaling and messengers,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
it creates a fire. It creates thermogenesis. It creates this heat in our bodies in order to receive the food and then start the digestive process. As soon as we put anything liquid on that, what happens when we put liquid on there? It's going to put that fire out. So an important one
Mm-hmm.
to look at. Certainly from a naturopathic perspective. So drinking and eating can be really counterintuitive or counterproductive. But then
Mm-hmm.
also, once we've received that food, if we just then sit, it will affect that digestive function. But if we let our bodies move gently, even if it's a dance party a little bit in the kitchen, but you're putting some
Yeah.
energy into the muscle tissue,
Uh-huh.
you're creating that heat, or you're supporting that heat process so that you're really digesting and utilizing the nutrients appropriately.
Mm-hmm. Interesting concept. I knew the idea of doing a little bit of exercise after a meal could help with lowering blood sugar, for example, and insulin response, and therefore mediate weight gain,
Mm,
for example. But I wasn't quite so keen on the fact that it actually enhances digestion and gets things moving, supports that
yeah. Yeah.
breakdown of food. That's fascinating. I know experientially, I'm sure people have all had this feeling, Thanksgiving, like coma,
Oh,
food coma, right?
yeah.
You eat too much, you're just sitting there, you're so sluggish, your brain fog hits, you're trying not to
Totally,
fall
right?
asleep at the family function.
Totally. And it's so
Yes.
hard those times when typically we should only eat until we're about 80% full. So you're still a
Yeah.
little bit hungry. So you're leaving some space, but then, get moving, grab that whole beautiful family and go out for a walk.
Right. Right.
How
Take a little
fabulous
brisk walk in the
would one of
fall
our,
air.
yeah. And
Yeah.
if you have a pooch or a pet or something, take it
Right.
with you. They'd be so
Right.
grateful for all of that, right? Uh,
Exactly.
but yeah, move your body. You move your body,
Right.
however which way you can. Certainly from an after a meal perspective, but then even outside that, if there's ways that you can really weave that into your life and lifestyle, having that muscle tissue, having that flow, that lymphatic flow, will really support
Mm.
digestion. All of those things will be really, really beneficial for the gut, and the beautiful bacteria that live there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. Good inspiration. I'm going to look forward to my workout today.
Exactly, right? Don't
Right.
skip it. Don't No skipping workouts.
Yes, and I tell my patients, it's like, you don't have to, you get to. You know, when
Yeah,
it comes
I
to
mean,
exercise, right? They're like, oh, I got to go to the gym. I got to do this. One's like, no, you don't have to. I mean, you do not have to. You could sit in that chair all day. You know, you can kind of feel sluggish and decrepit and weak like all day. No one's going to make you. It's up to you.
it's up
But you don't have to. You get to. And you know what?
to
Make it fun, and you're going to find out that your human body actually likes to move and it likes exercise. You know, you're doing
100%.
yourself
And
a favor.
maybe the gym is not for you. I mean, I'm not a
Yeah.
gym girl. I tried it for years and years and years, and it's just not my thing. I
Mm,
find it really intimidating, and I get self-conscious, wrongly or rightly. It's not my place.
right.
But I have found over the years ways that works for me and for my aging body, that it can be sustainable, and it's so important. I feel so much better if I'm
Yeah.
strong, you know?
Yeah. Yes.
And that is such an incredible piece that you can carry with you, obviously, not only for your gut health and for your digestion, but for everything moving forward for our
Mm,
whole life. To be strong in our bodies,
hmm.
um, and be able to move in a way that actually brings you some joy is so,
Yes.
so important. So maybe
Indeed.
the gym is not for you if you're like really dreading it, but get out and move some way, some shape or form. There's so many ways now.
Yeah.
Yeah, we shouldn't be making those excuses.
Yeah. Well, on that happy note, Kristina, it was a delight. Thank you for spending some time with us.
That's a
Um,
pleasure.
yes, this is a great conversation. I hope that all of the listening audience is inspired, encouraged a little bit with some practical ideas towards taking care of your GI system. What would be a great way for people to get in touch with you, Kristina, on into the future?
Oh, I think probably through my website would be probably the best way.
Mhm.
It's pretty straightforward from there to reach out to me and,
Mhm.
booking calls or appointments or whatever it is. So yeah, that
Mhm.
would be the best way. Thank you so much.
Okay, phenomenal. Well, thank you. I'll look forward to another discussion.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Thank you for having me.
of course. Take care.